Promise Basket by Bill Richardson and Slavka Kolesar. When the world was just a little younger and just a little sweeter than it is today, a mother lived with her baby daughter in a room that was smaller than small. A real mouse hole, you would have said. And in fact, there was a mouse who lived there too. The mother didn't mind, and the baby didn't mind. The mouse went about her mouse business quietly and professionally. The only time she ever made a noise was when she was asleep and cried out fearfully at nightmare cats. They were poor, the mother and her baby, but the mother was determined that gifts would be given when gifts needed giving. She was proud. She was hopeful. She would find a way. Where they lived was near the sea. On the day before her daughter's very first birthday, they went down to the beach. The mother looked and looked and looked some more until she found the prettiest and the pinkest of all the many wave-washed stones. She put it in her pocket. On the way home, in an alleyway, by a trash bin, she saw a basket. Whoever had thrown it away had not realized what it was. The mother knew. She knew right away. "A promise basket," she said. "Exactly what I hoped to find." She took the basket back to the smaller than small room, and she scrubbed it up till it was as good as nearly new. She found a dangle of ribbon and a scrap of paper good enough to use for wrapping, and good enough for writing on too. She set to work. And when the baby woke on the morning of her first birthday, the promise basket was ready. All it contained was the pretty pink stone, tied up with the paper and ribbon. When the stone was unwrapped and rosy in the morning sun, the mother read to her daughter what she'd written on the scrap of paper. "A stone when it's thrown can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. This stone and this promise are all I can give. I'll love you each day for as long as I live." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stone and the promise in it. December came. There on Christmas morning was the promise basket, hanging where a stocking might have been. Inside the basket, tied up with a scrap of paper and ribbon, was a stone, different from the first, but just as pretty, jet black, with a chalk white stripe around the middle. When the stone was unwrapped and glowing in the light of an angel candle, the mother read to her daughter what she'd written on the scrap of paper. "A stone, when it's thrown, can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. I'll wrap you in love, keep you safe, keep you warm. I'll do what I'm able to guard you from harm." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stones and the promises in it. And whenever time came that a gift needed giving, her little girl, who didn't stay little for long, would find the basket in a pretty stone, amber or gray, honey-colored or obsidian, tied up with paper and ribbon. When the little girl was a not-so-little girl, when she lost the last of her baby teeth, her mother wrote, "A stone when it's thrown can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. I'll love you, my girl, with your beautiful smile, from minutes to hours, from inches to miles." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stones and the promises in it. And on the day that not-so-little girl became a teenager, and when her mother saw how tall she'd grown, how strong, she wrote, "A stone when it's thrown can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. You're ready to fly, and I want you to know I won't hold you back when it's time to let go." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stones and the promises in it. And when the nearly grown-up girl was almost a woman, and when she loved someone who didn't love her back, her mother wrote, "A stone when it's thrown can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. Dark times might find us, but always they end. I'm here and I love you, and heartbreak will mend." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stones and the promises in it. She kept them all, basket and stones and promises, until the day her daughter's own daughter was born. The mother went to the beach then. She looked and looked some more until she found a stone that was pretty and pink and washed by the waves. She found a dangle of ribbon and a scrap of paper good enough to use for wrapping and good enough for writing on too. And when she went to meet her granddaughter for the very first time, she took the basket and all the stones and promises it contained. How heavy it was! And when her daughter unwrapped the stone, so pretty, so pink, and when she looked at the scrap of paper to read what was written there and saw that it was blank, she smiled. She knew exactly what to do. She took a pen and wrote, "A stone when it's thrown can damage, can break, but nothing can shatter the promise I make. One day you'll crawl, the next day you'll leap. I promise you promises that I will keep." And she kept her promise, and the promise basket too, and the stones and the promises in it. Covenants are sacred promises we make to each other. Covenants are what bind Unitarian Universalists together. I wonder, what sacred promises should we make together?